Welcome back, players, to another amateur 8-ball breakdown with Ben Myers in APA Skill Level 6. Today's going to be a little different video. We're going to talk about some of the basics about 8-ball pool or just pool in general. We're going to talk about some of the table anatomy, the equipment, and some of the rules for APA 8-ball. So the first topic here is the anatomy, and of course you would start with the table. So this is the head or the short rail. This is the head string. This is the kitchen. These are the cushions. This is the long or the side rail. These are the side pockets. This is the center string, the corner pockets, the foot string, the foot spot. These are the pocket points, commonly referred to as the titties. Onto the equipment, we got the rack, the cue ball, the pool cue, chalk, a pool glove, and now on to the game rules. It is impossible to cover every situation with rules. Common sense must prevail. Play within the spirit of the rules as well as the written rule. Teams that try to gain an advantage by creating their own interpretation of the rules are subject to sportsmanship violations. Win at the table and not from the chair. 8-ball is played with a cue ball and a rack of 15 object balls. The primary purpose of this game is for one player to pocket the solid balls numbered from 1 to 7 or the striped balls numbered from 9 to 15, and then pocket the 8-ball before their opponent. Each player's category of balls is determined when the first player legally pockets a ball. For example, if the first pocketed in the game is the 3-ball, then the player must pocket the rest of the balls numbered 1 to 7, while the opposing player attempts to pocket all the balls numbered 9 to 15. The turn passes from one player to the next whenever the shooter fails to pocket a ball from their category or fouls. A player legally pocketing a ball of their category must continue to shoot. The player who pockets their entire category of balls first and then legally pockets the 8-ball is the winner of the game. In league play, the 8-ball must be pocketed in a marked pocket. The players lag at approximately the same time to see who wins the first break. The ball that stops closest to the head rail wins. It is permissible to strike the head rail. If the lagged balls make contact with each other, both players fail to strike the foot rail during the lag, or a ball stops in the jaw of a pocket, re-lag. Failure to strike the foot rail or striking a side rail or any pocket results in loss of lag. Players are discouraged from using the cue ball during the lag. Insisting upon lagging with the cue ball is considered a sportsmanship violation and should be reported to local league management. The winner of the lag breaks in the first game. For that point on, the winner of the rack breaks in the next game. Racking. All balls should be frozen, or touching, as tightly as possible. Balls are racked by the non-breaking player with the head, the front, ball on the foot spot. The breaking player may request and receive a re-rack. The loser of the lag and or the loser of any subsequent game racks for the opponent. Ball placement when racking 8-ball. All 15 balls are racked in a triangle, with the 8-ball in the center. The remaining balls can be placed in any order. Breaking. The rack must be struck before a foul can occur. A player must break from behind the head string for the break to be considered legal. In addition, at least 4 object balls must be driven to the rail or a ball must be pocketed. The cue ball may not be shot into a rail before hitting the rack. Note: a player who is physically unable to break due to a medical condition may pass the break to the opponent, but only with prior approval from the local league management. Such occurrences should be marked as a defensive shot and an inning where appropriate. Players are not allowed to have teammates break for them. The cue ball's point of contact with the table is used to determine if it is behind the head string, also referred to as being in. To make this determination, simply compare the head string, an imaginary line connecting the 2 diamonds that are second from the head rail, to the cue ball's point of contact. A ball that is dead center on the head string is considered out, or not behind the head string. In 8-ball, the head ball or the second row of balls must be struck first by the cue ball. Failure to strike the head ball or the second row of balls does not result in a foul. If the rack is struck but the break does not qualify as legal, the balls are re-racked by the non-breaking player and re-broken by the same breaking player. If the rack is struck but the break does not qualify as legal and results in a scratch, the balls are re-racked and broken by the opposing player. Breaking safe or soft is not allowed. Make a note on the score sheet if you observe a player breaking safe or soft. Local league management may issue penalty to teams and players who are not breaking hard. Breaking just hard enough to comply with the rules is not a guarantee against penalties. Break as hard as you can while maintaining control. After the break, various circumstances can occur upon completion of the break. They are: a foul on a legal break will result in ball in hand for the opponent. No balls are pocketed, it is the opponent's turn. An object ball is pocketed, it is still the breaker's turn. If a scratch occurs on the break, the opponent receives ball in hand, which must be executed from behind the head string, shooting at a ball that is outside the head string. If an object ball is dead center on the head string or out, then it is playable. If it is in, the ball is not playable. If the two players cannot agree whether an object ball is in or out, then a third party should be consulted. If a third party is consulted, the third party's call is final. If no agreed upon third party is available, then a coin flip will decide the issue. To intentionally shoot at a ball that is in is a sportsmanship violation to be reported to local league management. Note: the cue ball must be in, as noted above, before play can begin. This is not a foul. No penalty may be assessed. It is up to the opponent to check to be sure the cue ball is in before it is shot. If the cue ball is out, the shooter must readjust the cue ball to a position behind the head string. If the 8 ball is pocketed on the break, it is a win unless the player fouls the cue ball, in which case it is a loss. If one or more object balls from one category are pocketed on the break, that becomes the shooter's category of balls. If balls from each category are pocketed on the break, for example 2 solids and 1 stripe, it is still an open table. The breaker has the option to shoot any ball except the 8 ball, which would be a foul. Any ball pocketed without fouling counts. If the shooter makes 1 ball of each category on their second shot, the table remains open. A miss or a foul on the second shot results in an open table for the opponent. If the opponent then pockets a ball and fouls, it is still an open table. Note: during an open table, a player can shoot a combination involving stripes and solids. The legally pocketed ball will determine their category of balls for the remainder of the game. The 8 ball may not be used as the first ball in a combination shot, as it is never neutral. Shooting the wrong ball. Occasionally a player will foul by mistakenly shooting the wrong category of balls in 8 ball or the wrong number ball in 9 ball. The shooter may avoid a foul by asking the opponent which ball or category of balls they should be shooting. If asked, the opponent must answer honestly. If the shooter hits the wrong ball, a foul occurs as soon as the wrong ball is struck, regardless of whether the ball is pocketed or not. Note: if a foul is not called before the shooter takes a subsequent shot and makes legal contact with a ball of their actual category, it is too late to call the foul. In addition, the following rule will then apply depending on the format. Once a player makes legal contact with the 8 ball, the player assumes control of that category or wrongly pocketed balls and can win the game by legally pocketing the 8 ball. In addition, if the sitting player does not call a foul before the opponent's turn ends and subsequently contacts the wrong ball during their turn, both players will assume the new category of balls for the remainder of the game. Combination shots. Combination shots are legal, but striking the correct ball first is required. The 8 ball may not be contacted first. If a player does not pocket one of their balls but pockets an opponent's ball, they lose their turn. No pocketed ball is spotted. Pocketed balls. Balls must remain in the pocket to be legal. If any ball, including the cue ball, goes in a pocket but bounces back onto the playing surface, it is not considered pocketed and must be played from where it lies. The shooter does not need to designate their intended ball or pocket during the shot, except when they are legally shooting the 8 ball. Note, once a ball has stopped all motion, it cannot move again without outside force affecting it. Therefore, if a ball which has been hanging in a pocket for more than a few seconds suddenly drops, it is to be placed back on the table where it was originally sitting. Note, if two balls become jammed in a pocket and are leaning off the edge of the slate to some degree, they are deemed pocketed. Drop them in the pocket and resume playing unless doing so ends the game. Balls on the floor. Object balls that get knocked off the playing surface will be spotted on the foot spot. If the foot spot is taken, the ball will be placed directly behind the foot spot as close to the foot spot as possible. If two or more balls are knocked on the floor, they are placed in numerical order with the lowest number ball closest to the foot spot. Spotted balls are placed frozen to one another. It might occur that a player legally pockets a ball while simultaneously knocking some other balls on the floor. In this situation, it is still their turn and the ball on the floor is not spotted until their turn ends. If the ball on the floor is one of the shooter's balls, then it is spotted when the shooter has pocketed all of their other balls. If it is the 8 ball that is knocked on the floor, the shooter loses the game. Accidentally moved balls. Accidentally moved balls must be replaced unless any of the accidentally moved balls make contact with the cue ball. If the accidentally moved balls make contact with the cue ball, it is a ball in hand foul and no balls get replaced. If the accidental movement occurs between shots, the ball must be replaced by the opponent before the shot is taken. If the accidental movement occurs during a shot, all balls accidentally moved must be replaced by the opponent after the shot is over and all balls have stopped rolling. Note, an object ball that is in motion and makes accidental contact with a bridge, cue stick, etc. is not replaced. If during the course of the shot, another ball stops in the position previously occupied by the accidentally moved ball, the opponent must place the accidentally moved ball in a fair manner as close as possible to its original position. Close hits. Potentially bad hit situations are usually fairly obvious. Disputes over these situations can almost always be avoided by having a third party, agreed upon by both shooters, watch the shot. The sitting team should protect itself by stopping the game prior to the shot. The shooter is required to stop if their opponent wants the shot watched. Once an agreed upon third party is asked to watch the shot, the third party's call will stand and cannot be disputed. In general, the shooter has the advantage in close hit situations. If the outside party cannot determine which ball was struck first, such as a simultaneous hit, the call goes to the shooter. Teams involved in repeatedly calling bad hits without third-party verification may be subject to sportsmanship violation and may have points deducted at the discretion of local league management. Note, if a third party is not asked to watch the hit and the hit is disputed, the call will tend to favor the shooter. 1 foot on the floor. When a bridge is available, at least 1 foot must be on the floor while shooting. Failure to keep at least 1 foot on the floor is not a foul but may result in a sportsmanship violation. Local league management cannot guarantee the presence of a bridge and some host locations do not have them. A team that carries their own bridge may only use it if they are willing to share it with the opposing team, since refusing to do so would be an unfair advantage. If a bridge is not available, house rules prevail. Wheelchair players. Players shooting from a wheelchair must remain seated in their wheelchair while shooting. If a player decides to exit the wheelchair to perform a shot, they must fully exit the chair. Players may not execute shots while half in, half out of a wheelchair. Note, players who have a legitimate need to use a stool due to their height are allowed to use one, provided they are able to move the stool by themselves and keep both feet on the stool. Additionally, when racking, they may stand on a stool or have a teammate assist them. Marking the table. No one is allowed to mark the cloth in any way, including but not limited to using chalk to draw a line or wetting a finger to dampen the cloth. Teams may be subject to sportsmanship violations for marking the cloth. It is permissible to set a piece of chalk on the hard surface of the rail. Stalemates. In the unlikely event that a game should become stalemated, meaning that neither player can, or wants to, make use of a ball in hand, the balls are re-racked and the player that had the break at the start of the stalemate game breaks again. A game shall be considered a stalemate when both players or teams agree. There is no minimum number of turns that must occur before a game is stalemated. To score the stalemated game in 8-ball, put an X across the entire game box. The innings and defensive shots for the stalemated game do not count. Frozen balls. A frozen ball is a ball that is touching either another ball or a rail. In order for the frozen ball rule to be in effect, the ball must be declared frozen and verified as such by the shooter and their opponent. If the players in the match cannot agree, an agreed upon third party may be asked to determine if the ball is frozen. Object ball frozen to a rail. To make a legal shot after contacting a ball that is frozen to a rail, the shooter must either drive the cue ball to any rail after the cue ball touches the frozen ball, drive the frozen ball to another rail or into a pocket, drive the frozen ball away from the rail and into another ball, which in turn causes the frozen ball to hit any rail or go into a pocket, or causes the other ball to hit any rail or go into a pocket. To make a legal shot after simultaneous contact between a frozen ball and the rail it is frozen to, the shooter must either drive the cue ball to another rail, drive the frozen ball to another rail or into a pocket, drive the cue ball off the rail and into another ball, which in turn causes the cue ball to hit any rail or causes the other ball to hit any rail or go into a pocket. Drive the frozen ball off the rail and into another ball, which in turn causes the frozen ball to hit any rail or causes the other ball to hit any rail or go into a pocket. Cue ball frozen to your own object ball. If the cue ball causes the object ball to move by exerting force into the frozen ball, not by breaking contact with the frozen ball, it is considered to be contacted during the shot. If you are shooting away from the object ball the cue ball is frozen to, in order to make a legal shot, you must contact another object ball, and then drive a ball to a rail or into a pocket. If the cue ball is frozen to the last ball of your category, the cue ball must separate from the object ball, then come back and make contact with the ball it was originally frozen to and drive a ball to a rail or into a pocket. Cue ball frozen to the opponent's ball. You must shoot away from the opponent's ball. If the cue ball causes the opponent's ball to move, which does not include breaking contact with the frozen ball, it will result in a foul. Fouls. If any of the following fouls are committed, the penalty is ball in hand for the opposing player. Make certain you have ball in hand before you touch the cue ball by confirming it with your opponent. Ball in hand is an advantage given to a player when their opponent scratches or otherwise fouls, whereupon the player may place the cue ball anywhere on the playing surface. Even after having addressed the cue ball, a player may, if not satisfied with the placement, make further adjustments with their hand, cue stick, or any other reasonable piece of equipment. Only the player or the team captain may officially call a foul, although anyone may suggest to the player or the team captain that a foul should be called. Note: a foul that is not called when it occurs cannot be called once the next shot has been taken. These are the only fouls resulting in ball in hand. All other violations are sportsmanship violations. The ball in hand fouls are: A. If the cue ball goes in a pocket on the floor or otherwise ends up off the playing surface. B. Failure to hit the correct ball first. C. Failure to hit a rail or pocket a ball after contact. A rail must be struck by either the cue ball or any other ball after the cue ball contacts the object ball. If the ball bounces back onto the playing surface, it is considered to have struck a rail. D. If after making contact with a ball that is frozen to a rail, the shooter fails to drive the cue ball to any rail after the cue ball touches the frozen ball, drive the frozen ball to another rail or into a pocket, drive the frozen ball away from the rail and into another ball, which in turn causes the frozen ball to hit any rail or go into a pocket, or causes the other ball to hit any rail or go into a pocket. If after making simultaneous contact between a frozen ball and the rail it is frozen to, the shooter fails to drive the cue ball to another rail, drive the frozen ball to another rail or into a pocket, drive the cue ball off the rail and into another ball, which in turn causes the cue ball to hit any rail or causes the other ball to hit any rail or go into a pocket, drive the frozen ball off the rail and into another ball, which in turn causes the frozen ball to hit any rail or causes the other ball to hit any rail or go into a pocket. E. Intentionally jumping a cue ball over another ball by scooping it into the air. F. Receiving advice regarding game strategy from a fellow player other than your designated coach. G. Touching or causing the cue ball to move outside of a ball in hand situation. H. Altering the course of a moving cue ball, including a double hit. I. Anytime the cue ball makes contact with an accidentally moved ball. J. The cue ball does not touch any object ball during the course of a shot. K. Touching another ball on the table while placing or adjusting the position of the cue ball during a ball in hand. How to win a game. A. You pocket all the balls of your category and legally pocket the 8 ball in the properly marked pocket. B. Your opponent pockets the 8 ball out of turn or knocks it on the floor. C. Your opponent pockets the 8 ball in the wrong pocket. D. Your opponent fails to properly mark the pocket where the 8 ball is pocketed and you call loss of game. E. Your opponent fouls the cue ball and pockets the 8 ball. F. Your opponent alters the course of the 8 ball or the cue ball in an attempt to prevent a loss. G. Your opponent scratches or knocks the cue ball off the table when playing the 8 ball. Note, if your opponent is shooting at the 8 ball and misses it altogether, commonly referred to as a table scratch, they have fouled and you receive ball in hand. You do not win because of this foul. Note, you may not play the 8 ball at the same time you play the last ball of your category. The 8 ball must be pocketed through a separate shot. If you pocket the 8 ball at the same time you pocket the last ball of your category, you lose the game. Marking the pocket. A. A coaster or some other reasonable marker must be placed next to the shooter's intended pocket. B. Marking the pocket with chalk is not recommended. C. Both players may use the same marker. D. Only one marker should remain on the table at a time. E. If the marker is already at the intended pocket from the previous attempt or game, it is not necessary to touch it, pick it up, or reposition it. Note, making contact with a marker is not a foul. If a pocket marker is placed on the rail or accidentally interferes with the shot, either in a positive or negative way, the shot stands. You can find these rules for APA 8-ball at poolplayers.com. Alright players, don't forget to show your opponent some appreciation with a fist bump and a handshake, and I'd really appreciate it if you'd like, subscribe, and ring the bell.